The silent halls of Blackwood Manor, the rain was a persistent, whispering drumming against the cracked windshield of Elias Thorne's ancient sedan. He was a man driven by curiosity, a historian whose focus was less on the celebrated epics and more on the forgotten footnotes specifically. The footnote known as Blackwood Manor. It stood on a bluff overlooking the restless, gray Atlantic, a monolithic testament to grandeur and a chilling monument to decay. Its official history ended a century ago with the mysterious disappearance of the Blackwood family, but its folklore persisted. A tale of perpetual sorrow, a curse, and the unsettling silence of its haunted halls. Elias had obtained the necessary, albeit reluctant, permissions. He carried a bulky camera, a tripod, and a journal filled with meticulous research. But his most crucial tool was his unwavering skepticism. He did not believe in ghosts. He believed in atmosphere, in misinterpretations, and in the power of a good legend to obscure simple human tragedy. The great oak front door, warped by salt air and time, groaned open like an old man waking from a deep, uneasy sleep. The air inside was instantly colder, heavier, and thick with the scent of mildew and long-dead aspirations. Dust lay everywhere, a soft, undisturbed blanket over everything over the faded velvet draperies, the marble floor, and the grand winding staircase that disappeared into the gloom of the upper floors. Just atmosphere, Elias muttered to the empty space. Adjusting the strap of his camera bag, his first stop was the library. Shelves of leather-bound volumes remained, their titles obscured by grime, their spines brittle. As he was setting up his tripod near a magnificent leaded glass window, a sound echoed from the far end of the room, a single soft page turning. Elias froze. He waited, listening only to the frantic beat of his own heart. He walked slowly toward the source, his flashlight beam cutting through the shadows. A book, a massive tome titled Sorrowful Ballads, lay open on a reading stand. He distinctly remembered it being closed when he first entered. He bent closer. The page displayed was blank, save for a single, freshly inked word written in a graceful, antiquated script. Leave. A flicker of unease finally pierced his academic armor. He dismissed it as a draft, a falling book, or an elaborate prank by local youths. Yet the lack of dust on the ink was undeniable. He continued his exploration, moving into the drawing room. Here, the sense of dread intensified. A grand piano sat in the corner. As Elias catalogued the room, the temperature dropped precipitously. He could see his breath in the still air. Then the piano lid lifted, slowly, deliberately. A key was pressed a single, dissonant C-sharp, and then the lid slammed shut with a finality that made Elias jump back. He stumbled into the adjoining ballroom. This was the heart of the manor's tragedy. It was here, folklore claimed, that Mrs. Blackwood had last been seen, waltzing alone in the moonlight before vanishing into thin air. He set his camera to a long exposure, hoping to capture the ethereal dust motes or simply the eerie grandeur dot as the camera shutter clicked open. A sensation swept over him, not of cold, but of overwhelming, crushing sadness. He felt a weight on his chest, a profound despair that wasn't his own. He heard it then, the faint, ethereal sound of a string orchestra playing a melancholic waltz. He looked towards the center of the room. The air shimmered. For a terrifying, heart-stopping moment, he saw her. She was transparent, a figure woven from moonlight and sorrow. Gliding across the floor, Mrs. Blackwood. She wore a gown of tattered lace, her face a pale mask of tragedy, her eyes staring not at him, but into an infinite, desolate distance. She was dancing with an invisible partner, her movement fluid, graceful, and utterly heartbroken. Elias couldn't move. He couldn't scream. He was a witness, not a skeptic, trapped in the orbit of her eternal grief. The waltz continued, growing louder, and as the spectral dancer turned towards him, her expression shifted. It wasn't malice he saw, but an appeal, a desperate, silent plea for something. And the waltz abruptly ceased. The transparent figure dissolved like smoke, leaving behind only the chilling resonance of the silence and the suffocating feeling of sorrow. Elias, gasping, finally fled the ballroom. He didn't run towards the front door, however. A frantic, irrational urge pulled him up the stairs, towards the children's nursery, a room his research indicated was forever locked following the disappearance of the Blackwood children. The door to the nursery was inexplicably ajar. He pushed it open. The room was bright, strangely free of the deep shadows that plagued the rest of the manor. Toys lay scattered on the wooden floor, a rocking horse, a stack of worn wooden blocks, a porcelain doll sitting upright in a small chair. Everything looked used, not abandoned. A small music box on a dresser began to play a delicate, chiming lullaby. Elias slowly approached the doll. It had glassy blue eyes and blonde, tangled hair. As he reached for it, the eyes moved, slowly tracking his movement. A whisper, faint as a sigh on the wind, brushed past his ear. "Mama needs to dance. That was the turning point. The ghost in the ballroom was not haunting the house. She was searching for her children. The house was a trap, a cage for eternal grief. Elias finally understood the curse. The Blackwoods were not disappeared. They were trapped, forever reliving their final moments of separation. He stumbled backwards, knocking over the rocking horse. The music box stopped instantly. The doll's porcelain face cracked, a jagged line running from its forehead to its chin, and the room was plunged into darkness. Elias didn't wait. He grabbed his journal, leaving the camera and his skepticism behind. He ran down the stairs, propelled by a primal terror that eclipsed his historian's curiosity. He burst through the front door and ran through the driving rain, not stopping until he reached the dubious sanctuary of his car. As he drove away, he glanced in the rearview mirror. High on the bluff, in the top window of the nursery, a pale light briefly shone, and he saw not one, but three faint. Watching figures, the mother, still searching, and the children, still waiting. Elias Thorne never published his findings on Blackwood Manor. He knew that some stories were not meant to be analyzed, but simply survived. He became a historian who spoke less of facts and more of the chilling, inexplicable power of true sorrow, forever haunted by the silent halls and the single devastating note of a piano in the house on the cliff.